Greetings, teachers of YouTube. Dr. Edel here again to talk a bit about some of the courses I'm developing. And so this week I've put together the skeleton of possibly the most ambitious and or crazy class idea I've had in a long time. And I want to talk a little bit about this course I'm designing, why I'm designing it this way, and hopefully what it will accomplish. And I also want to talk about some of the things that could go wrong that I am planning to prevent. So what this is, it's a 3-course workshop that in science writing, and the course is designed around the OpenStax chemistry textbook, Atoms First. And from using that textbook as the guide, we're going to be going through the first 7 chapters. What this course will do is provide students with a series of workshops so that they can choose to either learn the chemistry materials or choose to use that kind of as a jumping off point for an English course that will look at a little bit of creative writing, a little bit of science journalism, or they can use that chemistry material as a jumping off point for researching some of the historical moments in chemistry and some of the researchers who have really helped us come to a deeper understanding of the world around us. So essentially what this course does is provide a single room for students to earn credits in 3 different areas: high school science, high school English language arts, or high school social studies. Now, one thing I do want to make clear, however, is that this is not a triple credit course. All right, this is not a double credit. You don't get credit for 2 or 3 classes by sitting through the same lecture. Instead, what it is that the students taking all 3 tracks will be sitting together for that initial presentation and for that initial discussion. And so in there, I'll be going over the essentials of the chemistry material. So looking at covalent and ionic bonds, looking at stoichiometry, looking at the difference between compounds and solutions and so on. The thing that's important, though, is that the students in the different tracks will be working on very different projects. And so if a student wanted to do chemistry and English, then they would be doing twice as much work as a student who chooses to just do chemistry, or a student who chooses to just do the English. And part of how I plan to make that work is that we're using the textbook as kind of our jumping off point. And so the students who are doing the chemistry alone, or who are choosing to get the science credit, they will be going more in depth into the textbook independently and then taking on the problem sets. Whereas the students doing the English only approach would be finding outside sources that may be in science fiction or maybe in journalism, and then writing their responses to those. Whereas students taking the social studies approach, again, would be looking for more outside sources, but their outside sources would be more focused on historical moments in science. So, for example, finding 3 sources about, say, the Haber process, or finding 3 sources about Niels Bohr, okay, and then writing a short research paper about that moment. And so the English course, they're doing more reflection, more response, some creative writing, if anyone wants to choose to write science fiction. Whereas, the social studies course, they're looking at more of the research and the citations and, illustrating those moments, as opposed to the science group who, all three are starting with the same chemistry chapters, but notice that the science group is going in depth on those chapters, whereas the English and social studies groups are using the lecture materials to get the basic concepts, but they don't necessarily need to master the science content in order to get their English and social studies credits. Okay. Now, why do it this way? Why have one single class that gives 3 different tracks? And how am I going to grade this? So let's talk a little bit about YouthBuild McLean County. So the students we have, we actually have a relatively small number of students, typically about 40 to 70 or so, depending on the semester and enrollments and graduations. And then each of those students will be at very different stages in their education. We have some students who come to us as basic freshman, high school freshmen. We have other students come to us in their junior or senior year, looking to just finish up credits and graduate. And so with these students, we have some students who just need English. We have some students who just need science or just need chemistry. But the problem is, there are 3 of us, teachers on the education side, and dividing up the time becomes challenging when you have students at such different points in their education. We have a number of students who simply are not ready to take a full chemistry course. Whereas we have other students who don't need any more English and just want to focus on science or just want to focus on social studies. And so what I'm trying to do is to create a class that would allow all of these students to work together, even though they may be pursuing very different materials and very different learning outcomes. Because one of the problems that I see is that when students are, kind of isolated, focusing on just one class, and they don't have any other classmates who are working on that same class, it's hard to stay motivated. But we have a number of students who are in that boat where it's like, maybe we only have one student who's currently pursuing a specific class in science or a specific class in social studies. And so for me as the English teacher, all the students who come to us, almost all of them need English, because English is the one subject where, Illinois State Board requires 4 years of English. And so everyone comes in needing at least 2 more semesters of English. Whereas we do have some students who come in where they've already knocked out their math, or they've knocked out their history or their social study, their science or their social studies. Now, this kind of approach, it's similar to the idea of a one-room schoolhouse. Difference being that rather than me moving around to different students and completely tailoring an entirely different syllabus for each one, we're going to be using a common book regardless of the level the individual students are at. And one of the challenges I anticipate is that there will be students who really are not able to comprehend this textbook. It's actually a college level textbook. Like I said, it's OpenStax. It's the Chemistry Atoms First textbook, which is generally designed for a, 2-semester college course or 2 semesters of chemistry. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not going to be requiring students to take the full chemistry class. If they don't get the chemistry, they can still get a basic introduction to the science while pursuing English, while pursuing social studies. And, my hope there is that even for those students who may choose to focus on a quote-unquote like softer science, and I put that in quotes because there's this kind of perception out there that, like, say, ecology or some other course might be like easier than chemistry because chemistry or physics would be considered like a hard science, or people might think biology is easier. The reality is that it is easier to learn sciences that you can see. That does not make them easier, though. Right? Chemistry is hard because we can't see atoms. Like, literally, we cannot see them. There is physically no possible way to see an atom because they are too small for photons. And so for many of my students, they may have taken biology in the past, or they may have taken an environmental science course. And so the atoms and the molecules and the orbital structures may be completely foreign to them. And so for me, simply getting a student to appreciate that, say, how baking soda and vinegar react and why they react as a base with an acid, that to me would be a successful outcome for my students, because we offer for other science classes. I'm not the science teacher at YouthBuild. I'm the English teacher. And if we can help students simply appreciate the science, then that may convince them to retake the chemistry course at a future date and get more out of it, hopefully. Let's say a student decides they're going to just do the creative writing side, and then in a year from now they're trying to get their graduation credits. They may decide in a year, hey, I kind of liked the chemistry course. Maybe this time I'll go through it and I'll do the chemistry problems and I'll do the history research to get that social studies credit. It would be a completely different course for that student, even though we'll be using the same textbook. At least that's the plan. Now, let me talk about some of the things that could go wrong. The first thing that could happen is I may not have any students who want to take this at all. All right, there could be, the minute you say chemistry, students might be like, oh, I don't want to take that. So one way I'm planning on getting around that, is to talk up this course a bit. Basically say, hey, this is what I'm offering for English. And one of the things is that because I'm putting this course together, I won't have the time to give, I won't have the same freedom to put together the open discussions. And so by doing this course, it does mean that I'm phasing out some of the prior types of courses I was doing in the past. In the past, the most popular course I did was the free writing course, and every day we'd have a couple open topic discussions. And so those will be cut back quite a bit. And instead of having the open topics, we'll have the chemistry topics. Not every student will want that. And so I will also be doing a digital newsletter and yearbook course. That'll be another combination course. I will do another video for that. So, lack of students, it's a potential problem. Hopefully I will be able to convince enough students to take the course that as long as I have 3 or 4 regular students taking this workshop, um, it's designed so that any other students who want to can drop in for any of the modules. Like I said, you don't need to master the chemistry. A student could come in, listen to one day where we talk about S and P orbitals, and then that student could do a half-page written response and get one of their discussion credits for another English course. The next potential problem is that I may have students who start coming regularly but then start missing workshops, and then that creates a bit of a dilemma in that, do I redo workshops so they can catch up? Do I offer makeup work? And to be honest, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about that. My current plan is that if a student misses, say, 1 workshop or 2 workshops, we can meet outside class, talk about some makeup work, get them on track, keep them on track. Also, too, for the English tracks and the social studies tracks, there will be enough homework assignments for those courses that if you missed 1 or 2 of the sessions, it wouldn't be a huge deal. And with any of the chemistry students, there is the textbook. There will be the problem sets. If they missed like a presentation session but they did fine on the problem sets, obviously they learned the material. And plus, like I said, looking at the first 7 chapters of this textbook, we're spending an average of 3 days per chapter. So missing 1 workshop would not be the end of the world. But if I have a student who misses, say, 5 or 6 of the workshops, we're looking at missing 1 of the 7 units of the course. For those students, what I'm planning on doing is saying, okay, keep going with the course, but those days you missed, you'll have to take them in the future section. And so essentially, I may have a student who has Unit 1 knocked out, Units 3 and 4 knocked out, and Unit 7 knocked out, and then in the following semester they would do Unit 2 and then Units 5 and 6, which could create some headaches. I'd have to keep track of which students need which modules, and so to do that I'm going to print out some tracking sheets. So I just have a list of students. I'm marking which modules they've done, marking off which homework assignments they've turned in, and so that way I can keep track at a glance for the whole roster for that course. And then in that roster, it's going to differentiate the 3 different tracks. So students will get their check mark for attending that day, and then separate check marks depending on which homework they've turned in for each day. And that should make it a lot easier for me to keep tabs on which students are following which tracks, which students need to make up work, and things like that. And this is really important because the student population we work with, many of these students have outside obligations. They are working. They're taking care of families. We have a number of parents among our students. And so I need to ensure that on the days they are present, they are able to take part and able to get the points that they need, even though they may not be able to attend every day. So that is kind of the overview, the pros, the cons, and so as always, if you have any questions or thoughts, I especially welcome feedback on this idea. If you have suggestions, for readings, for activities the students can do, please post those in the comments. And with that, have a good rest of the day or night in my case.